When we travel to a new country to live for a long period, maybe as a student or because of our work, most of us feel homesick at one point or another. We miss our friends and our mums, and actually, often many of us miss the comfort of familiar food from home. So I was wondering, is it possible to create a sense of belonging in a new country by bringing with us food from home and sharing it with others? Well, I spoke to Chef Norman Musa, and he thinks so. Welcome to Belonging Across Cultures, the podcast that asks, how can we move from difference to connection and build better lives and a better world? This is a Tiger Spirit podcast, and I'm your host, Yang Mei Ui. I'm an author across cultures, and I write about difference and belonging. As a young boy in Malaysia, Chef Norman Musa helped his mum run her hawker stall in Penang. Now he is an international chef. But throughout his prestigious career, he has, I feel, dedicated his work to everything his mum taught him about Malaysian food, flavours, and cooking. And he has brought this personal sense of belonging and home, not just to the UK, but also to the world. Norman Musa, thank you so much for coming onto the Belonging Across Cultures podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Now, your career as a chef working internationally has been meteoric. Just to mention a very small list of your work, otherwise we'll be here forever. You have owned 3 restaurants and have been the race chef for the Formula One Lotus team. You've appeared on MasterChef Malaysia and on the BBC and Channel 4 in the UK. You've been appointed the Kuala Lumpur ambassador for Malaysian food, and you co-created the Wagamama Chef Academy in the UK, where you also teach and tutor. And wow, so many things. You are the author of a number of cookbooks in the UK and the Netherlands. Norman Musa, you were not always a chef. Can you tell us about your early career before you became a chef?
Well, let's start from beginning when I was 17. So that was like after I finished my SPM, that's equivalent to O-level. And then while waiting for the results, and then I applied for a job, which completely what my late parents would completely disagree with what I was applying for. And it was for cabin crew. Okay, because I felt like it'll be nice for me like traveling around the world. And then I was offered to join the interview, and that was with Singapore Airlines actually. And then as soon as my late parents found out, and they stopped me immediately, and they said that nope, you're not going to do that. You're going to further your study. You're going to continue your study. That's what you're going to be doing. And then so I got quite a good result, and then I was offered to further my study abroad, and it was in the UK. And my first choice was architecture. But my sponsor said that, we have too many architecture students, but we can offer you to do quantity surveying, which I have no clue what it was all about. So I thought like, okay, I'm going to make my parents proud. And so I took the offer, and then, so I came to the UK in 1994. And I did my degree. And after 3 years, I was offered a job in Bournemouth. So that was my first job. And I was a quantity surveyor for 10 years before I decided to give up my full-time job and then become a full-time chef, open up my first restaurant in Manchester.
That's quite typical Malaysian, isn't it? You know, study hard, get a good job. None of this strange careers. That's very Malaysian.
It is,
Quite a contrast, quantity survey, because my parents were the same. I wanted to be a writer. They said, no, do a sensible job. I became a lawyer, and I actually practiced property law. So actually our paths might have crossed. So you wanted to be a chef, and was this something that you had as a childhood dream? So how did you learn to cook?
I think back then, like in 80s or 90s, like if you tell your parents, Malaysian parents especially, I'm gonna stress on that, Malaysian parents, you're going to be a chef, they will definitely say no straight away to you, because for them, I've seen my late parents, they run like restaurants or more like a canteen, and it's a hard work anyway. And then they always think like, becoming a chef doesn't guarantee you a future or something like a proper income. But I proved them wrong.
So how did you learn to cook? You mentioned that your late parents had a canteen. Did you learn from them? Did you help in the kitchen, or was it home cooking that you learned?
So I grew up in a food business family, and then I've never seen my late mom kind of stop working. It's always like she was creative in terms of like think of like what sort of business that she can do to contribute to income to the family. And then so I saw her, she did like curry puff, nasi lemak, all the Malaysian kuih and everything, set up a small stall, and then she worked really hard. Well, both my parents, they worked really hard. My dad worked for Standard Chartered, and so he got a full-time job. And then after he finished his job, and then he helped with my mom. I mean, for the whole family, actually, we like at night after school, and we always like prep something. So every single, I have my duty, like I have to peel potatoes, for example, and my brother has to cut long beans. So everyone has their own duty. So that's how I learned to cook, and I watched my late mom, and I was like her sous chef actually in the kitchen. So I helped a lot. And then when she set up a stall selling banana fritters, I was there helping her most of the time because I went to school in the morning, and after finishing school, I went straight to the stall and to help her until like 5 or 6 in the afternoon.
And just for our listeners who are perhaps not familiar with the Malaysian culture, you mentioned Malaysian kuih, and kuih is the word for cake.
Could
And
be sweets or savories. So like all sort of well, we have the curry puff. Curry puff is like something savory, and then so we have like cucu badak, for example, like that's like sweet potato patties with the coconut filling, if you remember that. Yeah, so that's something savory as well. So all the sweet one, I would say banana fritters and also srimuka. That's something that I keep telling my friends, like when you go to Malaysia, you'll never go hungry. Okay.
that's true. And we Malaysians love food. And I think, we
Exactly.
joked a little bit about Malaysian parents being ambitious for their children. And actually, there's a serious message about around that because, your parents work very hard. They want an easier life. And an office job is probably, in their minds, an easier life. You're not working, 12 hours a day on your feet in the hot kitchen and worrying about where the income's going to come from. So that is understandable. And although we always sort of laugh about it, it's their ambition for their children. So can you also tell us a little bit about your childhood and your background and where you came from in Malaysia? What was it like for you and where you were growing up as a child?
So I was born in Butterworth. So Butterworth is a mainland of Penang. So you have like Penang Island, and Georgetown is the capital of the town, the city. And also we have the strip of like what we call Seberang Perai, and that is like where Butterworth. And my late mom, she was from the island. So you can imagine like every weekend we would go to my late grandparents' house. So have you been to Penang Island? So you'll see like this Penang Bridge. So one after you get off the bridge, and you'll see a Malay village on your left. So that's where my late mom was born. And so Penang is known for street food heaven, and you can get all the best street food, even better than Kuala Lumpur, I believe.
Oh,
But no, so
rivalry.
it's maybe no, not fair for me to say that. It's actually different. It's because street food in Penang is run through by generations. So you see like a family-run business, and it's exactly the same like my neighbors, for example. So one of them is very well known for the popiah, for the spring roll, and they made from scratch as well. Been run through like generations. I left Penang in 1991, so moved to Shah Alam, and that's why I did my A level. And after 2 years, and then I came to the UK in 1994. And UK was my first country. Like I never been abroad because we come from a very poor. I come from a poor background, and so my parents worked really hard to raise us, and so that's why my parents told me that education is very important. So study as far as you can, try to achieve as much as you can, because with education, everywhere you go, like you will survive.
And so what was your impression of the UK generally when you first arrived?
Wow. I remember when I first arrived at Heathrow Airport, I cried. I cried, and then I took the coach, National Express, down to Portsmouth, and I cried all the way down to Portsmouth. And yeah,
What were
so
you crying
Mhm.
about? Why were
Well,
you
because
crying?
I started being homesick, and then and then I kept thinking like, this is my life now, like away from my family. When you're away like thousands of miles away from your parents, you feel homesick. It was really hard anyway. Back then, 1990s, there's no mobile phone. So you just had to use like public phone to call my parents, and then I think for £3 only for 1 or 2 minutes or so. And so back then, as a student, it's too expensive for me, so I couldn't call. I lived with a number of Malaysian students, and then we decided to install the phone, and that's when I started like calling my parents regularly. It's really hard actually because you have to be independent, and then you have to cook. You have to live your life as a student. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's fast forward now. So you were a quantity surveyor and that wasn't what you wanted to do. You started your own restaurant. How did you learn to run a restaurant in the UK? And what was the first beginning, was it difficult? What was that like?
It was like more like a trial and error. I still remember. I thought, okay, it's a good idea for me to learn how they run, the cafe or restaurant, and then I joined this cafe. I still remember it was a vegan cafe in Manchester, and I only lasted for a day because they asked me to mop the floor, and then I said no. I would mop the floor. I was so arrogant and snobbish back then. And then, well, uh, in a day, I did learn a lot. I see how I saw how they run the kitchen because it was kind of like a canteen style. So they had to get the food ready by certain hour, 11 o'clock or so. So it's all about like how organized you are and then running. And when I opened up my first restaurant, and it took me 2 years actually to kind of like when I hit level that at a comfort level, at running a restaurant. Because I still remember my accountant told me that I have to make about 6,000 per week to sustain. And point at that moment, I only made about 2,000 per week.
Oh dear.
So that's when you have to think, you have to be creative. Like one of the ideas that I did was like I organized or set up cookery classes, educate people about what I noticed back then. People don't know much about Malaysian cuisine, and one of the best ways for me to do is like educate them about Malaysian cuisine and then how to cook Malaysian dishes. Provide them with knowledge about Malaysian cuisine, and then it was doing very well. And at the same time, kind of gradually promoting my restaurant as well. And I always believe that the best marketing way to promote any brand or restaurant is by word of mouth.
So that means your food has to be great and the experience in the restaurant has to be excellent.
Exactly. So two things like food and service. If you get these two rights for the restaurant, and that's it. Of course, the price as well. It has to be affordable.
And so from one restaurant, you grew to 3 restaurants. Could you tell us about that journey?
Yeah, so I was approached by this Malaysian guy that owned a restaurant in York. He offered like whether I want to take over and then made it as Ning. So I had it for 2 years, and one of the mistakes that I did, I didn't check like what was like behind the restaurant. It was a river, and the restaurant got flooded twice. And I've never seen like well, it was kind of a waist high, and then I saw like all my pots and pans were floating in the kitchen. Can you
Oh my
imagine?
goodness.
It was a bit funny, and then at the same time, like kind of like you really have to be very cautious. You have to check everything in the environment, like about the restaurant, the location, and everything. So that's very important. So I had it for I think about 3 years, and so after the second time, it was flooded, and then that's it. That's it. I'm not going to spend another 30,000 just to change the carpet and everything. So that's when I started looking to open up in London. Unfortunately, I fell ill. I was burnt out. So I've already found a location. It was in Islington. And then that's when I decided, okay, maybe I need to step back and then just like concentrate on the one in Manchester.
So from that, you've evolved. You also said to me that you have a mission to bring Malaysian food to the world. So is your TV chefing and your cookbooks, is that part of your mission?
It is actually the event. What actually made me like look up for these opportunities after I was offered to join the Formula One as a race chef by Tony Fernandez. Back then, it was Lotus team.
Wow. So Tony Fernandez, he owns Air Asia, is that right?
Yes, yes. So he owned Lotus, and then he specifically asked for his team to look out for Malaysian chef to join the team. So this chef can travel around the world and cook for the VIPs, for the team, and also for the driver as well. So it sounds glamorous, but it's not, okay? But I went to Norwich actually, so I had to cook for team. So this is part of the interview. And then and the team was impressed with my food, and then they offered me a job. And that was 2010, so 4 years. So I was still kind of like thinking that should I leave my kitchen in Manchester and join? And then that's when my late mum actually told me, well, that was the year that she passed away. But before she passed away, I didn't want to leave her. She was very ill, and I told her that I was offered to do this Formula One, and then she told me that do it. This is a lifetime experience, like a chance of a lifetime. So you have to do it. So I said, I don't want to leave you because you're very ill. I mean, like, I don't want to leave you like this. And she said, no, don't worry about me. So unfortunately, she passed away after I left her 2 weeks after to join the Formula One. But she was right. She was right. And then once I've joined the Formula One, it created like opportunities or platforms for me to promote Malaysian cuisine. So Tony Fernandez had a mission. So the mission was like to get people to know about Malaysian cuisine. And I still remember when I was in Malaysia during the Sepang race, I was more popular than the driver for the team. I found it very overwhelming because like for Malaysians, like this is the first time that we have a Malaysian chef for the Formula One, you see. And that's how I got the opportunities to do my cooking show, and then people start knowing my name and also book offers and everything. So starting from 2010, that's when I've got the opportunity to cook on BBC and all sort of things. Well, you've seen on my website anyway, all the lists and things I've achieved in the past.
What an amazing thing. And it sounds like your mum was an amazing woman and a great inspiration to you.
She's my role model anyway. And I'm so sad that she never got a chance to see what I've achieved. And the first book that I've written, published, it was self-published. She saw the book and I even put her photo in the book, and she cried.
Oh, wow.
So that was the only book that she managed to see.
That's beautiful. Now, you have quite a lovely story to tell about when you appeared at MasterChef Malaysia, when you lost. Can you tell us about that?
I was actually approached to be one of the judges for the show. So when they asked me like how much as my fee, I gave them in pounds sterling. So once they converted that, it was about 500,000 Malaysian ringgit.
Ringgit, half a ringgit, yes.
That was like a half of the cost for the show. You see, so I think they spent about 1 million ringgit to run the show. I'm sorry, we can't afford to have you because you're too expensive. I said, well, you're asking me like to spend in Malaysia like 6 months, so that's my rate. And then they decided, okay, so we can have you as a guest chef. Of all the guest chefs that were on the show, I was the only one that lost to the contestant. And then the worst thing was like I had to keep the news about me losing to the contestant for a month. And then my friends, they all kept winding me up. That's it, your career is finished. There's no way that, people are going to look up at you as a Malaysian chef anymore. And when the show was out, and it was amazing because what they did, they kind of like made me as a hero. Because when I was competing with the contestant, Dina, that's her name, and I helped her a lot because the dish was rendang beef Wellington. it's quite difficult because I was busy, keep looking at her, just to make sure that she's doing it right and everything. And I forgot to turn on my oven. So my beef was a medium rare. Well, for me, it's perfect. But for Malaysians, no, they can't, you see, because it has to be kind of a well done, isn't it? So that's how I lost it. And then, so since then, my Facebook followers suddenly from 30,000 becoming 80,000, just like that, within 48 hours. And then everywhere I went to Malaysia, even to IKEA, everyone was filming me, secretly filming me. That's something that I didn't enjoy anyway. I didn't expect you're gonna lose your privacy, and yeah, I kind of decided to step back. And then because I want to enjoy life as much as I want to promote Malaysian cuisine, I also want to kind of have my own life.
I think that's a wonderful story because, our modern world is very obsessed with winning. And actually, by losing, what you were showing was a generosity of spirit in helping your competitor. And that is just such a charming, wonderful story. Yes, it's quite a difficult thing, isn't it? When you become a celebrity, your life feels like it's no longer your own. So you want it to have a bit more privacy. So what are you doing now?
I gave up my restaurant in Manchester. I had it for 10 years, and I was offered to renew my the lease for the restaurant for another 10 years with a double rent. And that was in 2017. And I thought I made such a good decision not to renew the lease. And then I moved to the Netherlands. And of course, the pandemic COVID hit in 2019. So I was in the Netherlands for 3 years, the best time of my life, cycling everywhere. And then I moved back to London because London's always like a big city that provide opportunities because I do enjoy teaching. I love teaching. And that's why I set up an Asian Cooking Academy with my business partner, Rak Patel. So I teach Malaysian cuisine and Rak teaches Indian cuisine. So we do lots of corporate classes and also classes for public as well.
So before we come back to London, I'd love to stay with you in the Netherlands for a bit because you lived in Delft for a while, and Delft is one of my favourite cities in the whole world. Can you just tell us a little bit more about, what you were doing for 3 years in the Netherlands and what else you enjoyed about being in the Netherlands?
I was actually offered to set up a restaurant for this Chinese supermarket called One Am Hong. So they just opened up a huge supermarket, and they have this restaurant in the middle of a supermarket. And they asked me to come up with the menu, the concept, and everything. So I took the offer straight away and said, "That's it. Goodbye, UK. I'm moving to the Netherlands." And then, of course, the lifestyle there. Oh my God, I just love cycling everywhere. And so I live in Delft, and then I like to be close to the water, so you can see canals everywhere, right? And of course, all the beautiful flowers as well when in spring. So Delft is full of students as well. But it's just the buzz. I mean, you won't call it a city; it's a town, isn't it? And they have this a market every Thursday. So the fresh market, with the fresh produce and all that. I'm sure you remember that, right?
I love it.
So
I love it. The
yeah.
cheeses and the fish
Oh
and
yes,
the
yeah.
pastries, everything.
It's like the pace, you live, you're not running around to do things and all that, you see. And then the beauty of it, if you're running a restaurant for example, in The Hague or Delft, most Dutch they eat at 6 o'clock. So they have their dinner very early, and then by 8 o'clock you finish working already. So you're back home. It's very different. Like when I had a restaurant in Manchester, normally I finish about 1 o'clock, 1 in the morning.
So that refreshed you and revitalized you. So you came back. And so can you tell us a bit more about, the teaching and also your work with Wagamama?
I still remember I had the meeting with Wagamama team, and I had COVID. So I had to be quarantined. I was approached by them to set up this academy to train the Wagamama chef the basic knowledge about filleting fish, for example. So and also about the spices. So what normally happen some of the sauces and everything, been made in the central kitchen. So all the chefs don't have like a basic knowledge about the spices and all that. When I set up this academy, so we tested more than 200 recipes just to create the modules. And then, so of all these recipes, the dishes that we're going to teach all these Wagamama chef, we want to make sure that, by the time they finish after Masterclass 5, they have like a good knowledge about like Asian cuisine, about knowledge how to fillet in chicken, fish, and everything. So we've been running the academy now for 3 years.
So each Wagamama restaurant, is there a chef in each one and they cook it fresh for their customers there, or is it all done centrally and then moved to the restaurant?
Yeah, they do like a fresh like for example like chicken katsu, all the coating and everything is done at each restaurant. Only the sauces like been ready made like in central kitchen. So for example like anything stir fry like noodles and all that, you can imagine like that's been cooked freshly at each restaurant.
Wow, I suppose I don't think about how my food is prepared when I go into a restaurant, and particularly Wagamama, you go there because it's quick and it's fast. And I remember we were on our way somewhere at Heathrow and there was a Wagamama, so we had something and I was a bit nervous. Are we going to catch our flight? And of course everything came, it was all super efficient and it was fantastically tasty. And back then, of course, I didn't realize that that dish that I had in front of me was probably something that you had devised and prepared. So that I feel very excited to have had that connection with you. So you also have residency, so you still cook from time to time.
This is the downside, like for not having a restaurant. I miss having my own kitchen. It's not practical for me to spend money and also time to set up another restaurant, even though I've been offered. People want to invest for me to open up restaurants for them. I said, no, I'm not going to do that again because I'm not young anymore. Because I can do that in my 30s, but not like in my 50s now. So one of the ways to overcome the missing, like having my own kitchen, so residency is what I love doing. And I'm doing my third residency. So for those who doesn't know what residency is, so basically, like for a certain period of time, so you're taking over a kitchen. So it could be pub or restaurant. So I'm taking over this kitchen, this pub in Clapham for 4 weeks. So for 4 weeks, I introduce Malaysian menu. They have this rotation, like every 4 weeks, they will have a different chef to come into the kitchen and then introduce their own menu. So I've been very, very fortunate because my residence has been very popular.
Brilliant. So for people who are now thinking, "Oh, I must taste Norman chefing, cooking, cuisine," can you tell us when and where that is in Clapham?
So that my residency is at the King and Co. So 100 Clapham Park Road. It's only 6 minutes walk from Clapham Common Station. And so it's a very relaxed pub. They have this outdoor front yard that you can sit outside if it's good weather. And also my menu as well. I have the Malaysian favorites like a rendang, satay. And for beef rendang, I remember last time I cooked about nearly 100 kilos of beef rendang in 4 weeks. It's the best seller, and then everyone enjoyed beef rendang. I remember one of the customers got really upset after I told him that we ran out of rendang, so you have to come back tomorrow. So that's why I will be for 4 weeks, starting from 25th of May until 20th of June.
I'll put the links in the show notes, so you don't have to scribble with your pen if you're listening. You can just go to the show notes. But I have to say, beef rendang is one of my favourites, and I have what I call the beef rendang test. I go to different Malaysian restaurants and I tried the beef rendang, and I rate it, good, terrible, excellent.
I'm scared now for you to try my beef rendang. It's all about like getting the beef kind of melt in your mouth. And of course you have this like all this beautiful flavors. My kind of beef rendang is not too spicy and it's not too oily. Because for me, if you make it like too spicy, that's when you're gonna start losing all these other flavors like galangal or lemongrass.
Oh, I'm starting to drool now. So, Norman Musa, you have connections with 3 countries, Malaysia, the UK, the Netherlands. How do you feel about each country and where do you feel you belong?
See, this is what I always believe, like, destiny. And then, like, when it comes to the Netherlands, I never thought I would live in the Netherlands for a few years. And to be honest, like, talking about, like, coming over to the UK, and even like to live here, that was not part of my plan. Because like by the time I finished my degree, I was supposed to go back to Malaysia and then work in Malaysia. And that was in 1997. And that's when the recession hit Malaysia. And then my sponsor told me, if you can find a job in the UK, just take it, because there's no point of you going back to Malaysia because you're going to be jobless. And I did that. The hardest thing was like to convince my late parents of my decision to live in the UK. And so I still see myself as a Malaysian, and then like a kampong boy, and that's my roots. And I still remember my late mom say that no matter how famous you become, or people knowing you and all that, don't forget your roots, where you come from. And that's something that I always remember.
For our listeners who don't know Malay, kampong boy means kampong is village, so you're still a village boy at heart.
I do want to go back and I don't know, retire in Malaysia, but that's not going to happen in the next 20 years or so, because I love working, I love teaching, I love cooking. And UK is more like, well, it's home. And this is why my work is as well. This is like a base for me to promote Malaysian cuisine. And Netherlands is actually like a really good... So after I moved to the Netherlands, and because like you live in the Netherlands, and you've seen like how big Indonesian cuisine is, and how tiny, like almost unknown Malaysian cuisine. So I see that as a challenge. It's almost similar like how I first started promoting Malaysian cuisine in the UK. I remember like someone walked out from my cooking demo because like they didn't like the smell of curry. So but somehow, like, there's ways how you can convince tell people the beauty of Malaysian cuisine. And that's sort of like a challenge now I kind of set up in the Netherlands. So I've been offered to write a cookbook. My cookbook in Dutch came out in 2024. And I've been doing like cooking classes over there as well, lots of events, supper clubs. And so it's not just in the Netherlands. So now I'm reaching out to Belgium as well, and also to France. So these are my two kind of like next
bit by bit, you're
targets.
taking over Europe.
Yes.
Now, in your life, you've travelled all over the place, and not just these countries, but with the Formula One as well. You've tasted food from different countries. You've been to the local markets in different countries. What do you think food and cooking can tell us about different people and different cultures?
This is something that I keep telling my cookery class students, even like this Wagamama chef as well. Wherever you go, wherever you travel, always go to the fresh market and then observe the locals, what they eat, how they eat the food, and what sort of ingredients that they use. For me, that's how that represent their identity, the culture. And so that's what makes it so special. And for example, like in Europe, like you go to Italy and you go to Spain, and you can see like how the markets that produce different as well. So based on the local produce, that's something that I always do, because by then you will see and you appreciate the culture and also the food as well.
I was talking to Chef Norman Musa. The views expressed by my guests are entirely their own and do not necessarily reflect my views. For credits, photos, and links to some of the things we talked about, go to the show notes page on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. There are also more podcast episodes, written articles, and other bits and pieces on the main website at belongingacrosscultures.uk. If you enjoyed this episode, please do leave a review or rating, or follow Belonging Across Cultures. It helps those algorithms highlight the show to more listeners. Please also tell your friends about this podcast and share a bit of belonging with more people. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as @TigerSpiritUK, and on LinkedIn as Yang Mei Ui. Thanks for listening, and see you again soon.